Alright guys, so it's pretty clear I'm not in class today. You know that. But what your guys' expectation is that you guys will listen through this entire video and you guys will gather up any information that you guys could possibly need for, well, your trial case. The person that I'm choosing today is going to be integral to understanding our main man. It's the fact that we're going to get him prepared, and perhaps it will be the thing that turns the tide on all. With that said, the person you will be talking to is none other than the captain's wife. Her name is Maria. Now, Miss Maria is an interesting woman. You'll hear her trials and tribulations, and moreover, what she thinks about her son, her ex-husband, and the situation as a whole. Now, I caution you, and I warned you before, but I'll warn you again. Remember that whatever I say as Maria could be taken out of context. After all, I'm not under oath as Maria yet. Ready yourselves? And here we go. Hi all, this is Maria. Sorry, it's been quite some time since I've had to talk to anybody about my ex-husband. It's been a painful couple of years. For me, the pain all starts with the fact that the man I loved was taken away from me very suddenly and cruelly through war. It's something that I wouldn't wish upon the worst of my enemies. It's the fact that when you send someone off to war, you don't know if they'll come back the same person. The man that I loved so dearly came back as nothing more than a shamble, a shadow of his former self, a broken assemblage. Now with him, our relationship had always been unique. He was older than me, 3 years older. I was the silly freshman, he was the senior. Typical story, I know, but in high school, it happens. As the story goes, the silly, nerdy girl got picked up by the amazing jock of the town. Does that mean that it was perfect? No. If nothing else, I saw something greater in him, something more than just the athletic jock who couldn't make ends meet and couldn't really be better than the sum of his parts. I saw somebody who could really change, who could really be better, who could make me better. That's what I fell in love with. Now, of course, things do change. My husband had always been an interesting one. His personality had always been tumultuous to deal with. It had always been hard to deal with him when he's on his highs and when he's on his lows. It's the fact that at the end of the day, he wasn't always the same person. I had known that he had always dealt with problems. Even as a high schooler, I could see that he was very, very depressed. Maybe it's inadequacy issues, maybe it was otherwise, but he never seemed to really let me in all the way. Though I was madly in love with him for the first 3 years of our relationship, things started falling apart. When I married the man, I had believed that I was just young, and that because we're both young, things would change. That there was still time for him to grow into the man that I wanted him to be. That somehow my love for him would be enough. The only problem is he didn't see it as that. He spent his first couple of years battling his own demons. He had planned to go off to college on a football scholarship, but lost it once he found out that I was pregnant. That joy that was on his face, it was irreplaceable. He would never, ever admit it, but I think subliminally his biggest happiness was always having kids, having a family, being more than who he was. As I got pregnant, he refused to take his college scholarship. It was out of state. He was supposed to play at Ohio State, and if we're stuck in small town Orange County, how can we really maneuver anywhere? It becomes hard. It becomes difficult to deal with. And more than anything, it makes you question, why me? What made me so special? That becomes part of the problem. I said I was madly in love with him for 3 years. Our first miscarriage was when he was about to leave. Was I actually pregnant? No. Am I proud of it? No. I lied to him. I told him that I was going to have a baby so that way he would stay. I wasn't sure if the distance and the fame was going to get to his head, and I didn't want to lose him. But as he stayed behind, as he dealt with my eventual telling him of a miscarriage, I think my own demons started eating me up inside. Every lie grew bigger and bigger and more substantial until eventually I lost sight of who I was. Now, my husband was embattled by these demons, by the fact that his first child was consumed by something different. I could tell that that was a big push for him. He lost control. He started drinking more with friends. He started losing jobs faster than he could get them. He started losing that notoriety as the star football player and became more of a laughingstock of the town. I still loved him nonetheless. I loved him until it was hard for me to love him. Right at the end of our 3rd year together, he decided to go to the army. It was to get some closure, it was to get some distance. He wouldn't tell me, but I'd always expected that he would eventually somehow tell me. He proposed, and I could see the love in his eye. I could tell that he wanted things to work out, but he also knew that the army was a dangerous place. He wanted to leave behind everything that he had to someone. And who better than that than his high school sweetheart, his love. I agreed. We were married very quickly, and though our marriage life wasn't perfect, it was more or less what I thought I was going to get. Now, it's hard for me to state this, but as I said, our love only lasted 3 years, or at least my love for him. As he went off to basic training, as he went off to other places, to distant and far lands, his letters became less frequent. I knew he was in special ops, and I knew he couldn't tell me anything, and while immensely proud of him, I didn't have the heart to tell him while on these high-stress missions that I no longer loved him. I did unfortunately, what so many people did. And I always told myself I would never do this, but I cheated. I ended up cheating with men on the side just to feel something again, to feel loved. Maybe it's just me being young, but that's it. Now, my husband, to this day, will never know, or at least he won't know until now. But for him, I think the toll would be too much for him. Through those first 4 years, he always seemed to be on mission, on mission, on mission, and every time he would come home, he would be happy, and I would be proud of the man that I am still married to. It only got worse after that 4th year. When he came home after the first 2 years of his tour, after a second tour, things changed. He was more emotionally distant than ever, physically not present, and at times insane. He would often spend nights on leave screaming at the walls, clawing at it. There are days where he would look me straight in the eye and shake me as I slept. It got so bad that I had to change rooms. I had to sleep in the living room while he slept there. Now, if you're asking why I didn't divorce him, there's no stressor like adding a divorce onto somebody who is already being promoted to captain. There's nothing worse than knowing that the one person you can trust and love isn't there for you anymore. So one night, when we had finished our marital duties, I told him the truth. I was pregnant. I was pregnant with an amazing, beautiful boy. Now, this came to him as a surprise. Surely it would be a surprise to anybody, but we had been trying for years when he was on leave, and, well, it seemed ineffectual. Here lies part of my fault. The son was never his. The reason I say it's my fault is I had to tell him, and I did, but I waited too long. He was already too far gone. I waited until our son was born. I didn't have the courage. I couldn't tell him. I had broken it off with the other man. He promised to never see me again. And I felt incredibly guilty. As he was holding our son one night, I told him, as beautiful as this boy is, he's not yours. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially for one like him. And for him, it seemed like that was the breaking point. There were nights where he would continually shake me. There are instances where he choked me to the point where I had to call the police. He chased after me with knives. He tried to kill our son in our sleep. It got to the point of exhaustion. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And because he knew that the son, though it's his son legally, isn't his, he snapped. He agreed to get better, but he didn't want any part of me anymore. We both agreed to divorce. After divorcing, I realized that this man is unstable. He sought help because he wanted to see his son, the son that wasn't even his. It's a hard reality. But I think over time it festered and grew into his head. And for him, it was less about whose son it was and more about him. As a surrogate father, he was proud. And I think that's all he could manage. Now, with regards to his PTSD and his other ailments, he had always been taking medication. He had always been trying to solve his problems. Were they working? Not quite. Every single time I saw a man, it seemed like he was on the verge of tears or breaking through a door. Anytime he picked up our son from our house, he seemed different, jaded, and then when he would drop him off, elated. That was until about 2 weeks before the shooting. 2 weeks before I lost my son. He acted erratic. I made a lie. I told him I was in Cincinnati, but I hired a private investigator to look into him. He didn't seem well. Instead of being his usual depressed then happy self, he seemed down. It was then when I realized what it was. He had cancer. He knew that he wouldn't be the father for his child for long. That, like his upbringing, though different, he wouldn't be able to provide for what his son needed. And that's the greatest fault of it all. As he fell apart and deteriorated further and further, I could see the loss in his eyes. My investigator followed him to a separate hospital where he apparently received news of his cancer. Stage 4 brain cancer. I know that in my heart he would never have done anything to harm our son. Intentionally. But when coupled with the news that you have less than 6 months to live, and that your son, the one thing that you love more than anything, isn't yours, are you really even yourself anymore? Maybe that's what eventually got to him. I can only guess. Okay, guys, so that concludes the last person that you guys are going to interview, at least for today. What that means is that you guys will have time to, of course, interview Miss Maria when I come back on Monday. If you want to generate any questions, now would be the time to start generating questions. Other than that, explicit instructions will be given to the subs, which you guys will get, of course. Now, on the off chance that you guys don't see the video in time or can't access the video, I will also leave the video links for the subs to type into the computer so that way you guys can see it online. With that said, try your best. Take your notes and prepare. Remember, Maria's testimony as it's just now is not perfect. It may not even be 100% true. Base your instincts, ground your arguments, and ready yourselves. I'll see you all on Friday.